everybody, welcome back into Cherry Picking. Today's video must add Week 5, presented by FanDuel Canada, North America's #1 sports book, the best place to be betting on the NHL this season. 53 games in the NHL this week, so tons of games, tons of players to pick up. We have 8 guys we're looking to pick up for this week. Looking at some of the teams that are playing the most, there's a lot of teams playing 4 games this week, so definitely a lot of options out there if you're looking for streamers as well. So teams that are playing 4 games: Vancouver, Toronto, Tampa, San Jose, Montreal, Minnesota, Florida, Dallas, and Columbus. So definitely some solid teams there that have some good players, and even some maybe not top tier teams, but have some maybe sleeper candidates that could really help your fantasy hockey team this week. And just looking at some of the guys from last week that were on the must-add list that did solid. So Hartman only had 2 games played. I told him he was more of a longer ad for the rest of the season. He's probably close to 55-60% roster at this point. He had 1 goal in 2 games played for the Wild last week. Mikey Matheson just had 1 assist last week. The Canadiens had a tough schedule last week, playing Vegas on that West Coast road trip a little bit more before coming home. So 1 assist in 3 games played, along with 4 blocks and a couple hits there. So a little bit healthier there for bangers leagues, I guess you could say. And then Cam Atkinson, 1 goal in 4 games played, 15 shots on goal though. So you could good to see the volume there for Atkinson and this Philly team, alongside Bobby Brink as well, 1 goal and 1 assist in 4 games last week. And then one of our deeper ads actually proved to be pretty solid, Mason Marchment, 3 points in 4 games played last week, along with 1 goal and 2 assists. Let's get into the must add for Week 5. All right, so the first guy we're going to be looking to pick up this week, Lawson Crouse on the Arizona Coyotes. They play 3 games this week. He's 17% rostered, has that left wing, right wing duality there. 10 games played so far this year, 7 points last week, just absolutely exploded, along with his Arizona offense. Had some pretty big games. But looking at his point total last week, he had 6 points along with 4 goals. And a lot of people might say, like, oh, look at his shooting percentage, 21% shooting percentage. That's really high. But I think the volume will kind of still be there for Lawson Crouse and this Arizona team as well. Top 13 team in the league in terms of goals for per game so far this season. He was top 12 in expected goals for last week, like 3rd or 4th, obviously, in points with 6, or tied 3rd, I guess, with 6 points. And also top of the league with 4 goals as well. Led the team in high danger chances for last week, which is awesome. Playing on that second line with Nick Bjugstad and Matthias Michelli, and then playing on that second power play line that's actually been better than that first one, at least last week, playing with guys like Nick Bjugstad alongside, same as his second line, and then also Michelli, and then Michael Charcone, who also had I'm pretty sure he had a hat trick in that game against Chicago earlier in the week as well. So Lawson Crouse, definitely a guy I'd be looking to pick up this week. 3 games played, but still someone who's getting a lot of time, especially on the ice, and then also in a lot of different situations, especially in the offensive zone. All right, so the next guy we're going to be picking up this week, another guy in the Dallas Stars like last week with Mason Marchment. We're going to be looking at Wyatt Johnston, center on that second line right now, 21% rostered, 7 points through 10 games played, so definitely having a solid year so far. Surprising to see he's only 21% rostered. A little bit of a mid-tier shooting percentage right now, but a shooting percentage I think he can probably keep up for the rest of the season, I will say. Last week, he led the team in expected goals for, high danger chances as well, and was top 10 in the league in those numbers as well. Led the team in shots as with 10, and then second in Corsi percentage for amongst the team, just behind Jason Robertson. So definitely some good company to be up there with. I mentioned last week DeBoer's still figuring out these lines, but it seems like he does really like this second line of Johnston, Jamie Benn, and Evgeny Dadonov. They play 4 games this week, so definitely a guy you want to be streaming for this week as well if you need a center. Last year finished with 24 goals and 41 points in 82 games. With 7 points through 10 games, he's on pace for around 60 points this season. I think he can even exceed that. You look at his power play point total, currently has 0 power play points, but playing on that second power play line. Something I said that the Stars power play would probably regress a little bit. They were like top 4 in the NHL last year with a really high percentage. They've gotten out the gate a little bit slower, but I think as the board tries to figure out these lines and maybe don't rely fully on that first power play line, we'll see Wyatt Johnston get a little bit more power play time and start to see the production increase there. So definitely look at picking up Wyatt Johnston this week. All right, so the next guy we're going to be looking at, another center on the Montreal Canadiens, Sean Monahan right now. Surprisingly, honestly, 33% rostered. I was surprised to see he's this high rostered at this point in the season, but if you're looking at his point total, it kind of makes sense. 11 games played, 10 points, so almost a point per game right now. A relatively high shooting percentage, but you got to like this guy because he plays in pretty much every single situation for this team, especially with the lack of depth right now at center for the Montreal Canadiens. 3rd on the team in expected goals for last week, and the guy who led the team last week in expected goals for, a guy I kind of wrote off after watching the first few games of this Montreal team play, was Brendan Gallagher. He's actually looked pretty solid. So they're playing on the same line right now alongside Tanner Pearson. So a little bit of a veteran line there seems to be working for Martin St. Louis because this team is creating a lot of offense. Last week, in terms of totals, they created the 9th most scoring chances for amongst the NHL. So that's definitely high for a team that people probably didn't think would be in that kind of competition with some of the top offensive teams in the NHL, but they are right now. And a lot of the offensive production is coming from this line, from Sean Monahan, Brendan Gallagher, and Tanner Pearson. He's playing on that first power play, which has been solid so far this year, and he's playing in front of the net. So obviously with Cole Caulfield shooting pretty much from the trigger there, or from the point, wherever he's getting his chances from being in front of the net, is definitely going to prove to be productive and efficient for Sean Monahan. And then he's also playing on that first penalty kill. So like I mentioned, plays in pretty much every situation. The Canadiens play 4 games this week, so another guy that you could be streaming. They get Detroit, Tampa Bay, Boston, and Vancouver. So definitely some plus matchups there earlier in the week against Detroit and Tampa Bay, and I think you ride Sean Monahan for the rest of the week as well. NHL same-game parlays are back on FanDuel this season. Offered in every single game, every single night. Unlike most books, you can include goals, points, and shots on goal. But the newest feature is the gift. Goal in the first 10 minutes. Looking at teams to target for the gift, here's the top 5 teams in goals per game last season. Here's a breakdown of goals in the first period from the 2021-22 season, as only 17% of games that season didn't have a goal in the first period. What will your NHL SGPs look like at FanDuel this season? All right, so the next guy we're going to be looking at, Matthew Knies on the Toronto Maple Leafs, 16% rostered, left wing now on that first line with Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner as of yesterday. The lines were reported a little bit of a switch, obviously. Yarncroc was playing on that first line in the Buffalo Sabres game, but the experiment didn't really work, I would say, in their favor. It was the lowest expected goals for percentage that a line had created this year that Matthews and Marner were on compared to the other combos that they created. Every other combo they've been a part of has created an offense or an expected goals for percentage of 52% or higher. Knies has just 4 points right now, but we saw what he did in Minnesota. The guy's an elite offensive talent, and playing alongside Matthews right now, who's absolutely buzzing, scoring at will. He'll definitely be able to get some residuals, some assists there, and then also be able to create his own offense. I think this will be a really creative offensive line, and the Toronto Maple Leafs have 4 games this week, so this is a must-add streamer. If you are in a deep league and need a left winger, he is probably the best option out there. All right, so another guy that's been moved onto the first line as well is now Marco Rossi on the Minnesota Wild, 10% rostered. 11 games played so far. He has 5 goals already, and just being added to this top line, I think it'll just increase his productivity and ability to create offense. 3rd on the team in expected goals for last week, 3 points in his last 3 games, including 2 goals. 2nd on the team in high danger chances, 4 in that same time frame as well. And he's on the point on that first power play, so you love to see that. It's a absolutely lights out role for this guy. 4 games this week as well, and you know, playing next to Kirill Kaprizov and Matt Boldy, 2 really good offensive players, and 2 guys that can score the puck at will as well. Similar scenario to what Matthew Knies just threw himself into. Another young guy in Marco Rossi, who's starting to get his chance in this Dean Evason Minnesota Wild offense, and I think he will prove it to be very worthy. All right, so another good guy to pick up this week, Quinton Byfield on the Los Angeles Kings, has that eligibility of playing center and left wing in Yahoo Fantasy Leagues, and a guy that just needs to be rostered right now. 6 points last week in 3 games. Playing on that first line with Kopitar and Kempe has obviously really helped Byfield his production and just grow as a player in this NHL league. Has been awesome so far on this line as well. I think he knows his role. Kempe has been shooting the puck so much more over the past 3 or 4 games, and I think playing with guys like Anze Kopitar and Quinn Byfield, 2 guys that play very similar styles. Like if you look at what Byfield did when he was playing in Sudbury, definitely more of an assist guy than a goal scorer, and playing with Kempe, a guy who's just an elite goal scorer last year, hit the 40 goal mark or close to the 40 goal mark, and I think we'll see a similar scenario this year, playing alongside 2 guys that can pass the puck very well and create offense for their line mates. And then playing on that second power play. He's not on that first power play just yet, but we're definitely seeing Todd McClellan switch it up and keep it relatively split between these 2 power play lines. And he's playing on that second power play line with a guy like Trevor Moore, who's also having a terrific year this season. Quinn Byfield, definitely a guy you want to have on your team for the rest of the season, I would say. And I would pick him up before his roster percentage gets too high. Last 2 guys we're going to be picking up, 2 defensemen The first guy, a little bit highly rostered, 21% rostered, Jake Walman on the Detroit Red Wings, playing on that first pair alongside Mo Seider, and then playing on that second power play line as well. This guy's playing in a lot of different situations, up to 21 minutes per game through 12 games so far this year. 6 points, 3 goals, 3 power play points as well. So just really effective in all facets of the game right now. Not maybe like very useful in bangers leagues, I would say, but definitely plays that offensive role, and then alongside Mo Seider as well. Mo Seider, a little bit more of a stay-at-home defenseman, but still obviously able to get those assists. But Walman seems to be creating a little bit more offense, definitely a little bit higher on their team. When looking at defensemen in terms of expected goals for, I know Gossespierre was one of those guys at the beginning of the year, but it seems like Walman's starting to take over that role even more, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see him move on to that first power play at some point this year if they try to switch it up a little bit. But definitely love to see what Jake Walman's doing so far this year, and if you're needing a defenseman this week and for the rest of the season, Walman is definitely a guy you could look at to maybe pick up and even drop, because I don't think he'll be totally rostered throughout the entire hockey season. All right, and the last guy, definitely a streamer this week, someone who proved to create a decent amount of offense considering how their team is kind of laid out right now, and that's Erik Cernak on the Tampa Bay Lightning. 3% rostered. If you're looking at his stats so far this year, it obviously doesn't have a single goal, but if you're looking at hits, he's top 10 in the NHL right now with 25. Last week was top 7. Blocks, he's getting there, has seen a lot, or has blocked a lot more shots over the past 4 or 5 games considering compared to the beginning of the season. Not really getting a ton of shots on goal right now, but one really interesting note, last week amongst defensemen, he was second in expected goals for, so starting to create a little bit more offense. He's playing the 3rd most ice time on this Tampa Bay team, only behind Sergachev and Victor Hedman. He's playing on that first pair with Victor Hedman as well, so definitely playing with that first line offensively with Kucherov and Braden Point will definitely help him in terms of getting some assists or just being in the midst of creating offense and getting a chance to get some points there. And then playing on the first penalty kill as well will help if you're in a bangers league looking for guys who are blocking shots and getting a little bit more hits. All right, so there are 8 must-add players for week 5 of the fantasy hockey season. Let me know what you thought in the comments. Be sure to like and subscribe. Download the FanDuel Canada app this week, 53 hockey games, and I'll see you guys in the next video.